Okay, so after reporting a loss of $164,000 for fiscal 2019, the co-op's annual meeting attracted a much larger than usual audience.
Yeah, over 200 people were there to hear about the loss, to hear how much it was going to be, and also why did this happen, and what are some things that maybe the leadership of the co-op is thinking about doing. So that was pretty much the brunt of the whole meeting. They talked about the solar panels, which I think, according to the meeting, are supposed to be up and running by next cooling season.
Yeah, they're supposed to start by end of January.
Yeah, take a couple months.
Work.
Yeah, well, roof and then the thing, right? Exactly so. And that'll save $60,000 a year, which is good. And another thing to keep in mind, this is out of total sales of 11 million, 11.8 million, almost 12. Now, they reported that as the first time in a decade, more than a decade, that it was below 12. But the good news is that 164, though bad, is still a small percentage of that. You know, we're not talking, it's still a viable business in spite of the problems, in spite of the issues. But anyway, some of the problems, and we've reported on this before, especially in the pharmacy department, the rise in processing, the increase 5 times from $1,000 a month to $5,000 a month at Caremark to process copays. It's a whole separate business, a whole separate process. It's very complex, and you have to hire someone.
And I have to wonder how you could quintuple that fee. So it goes from $12,000 a year to $60,000 a year, and that's a hard thing for business.
Someone at the meeting, I think it was Joe Teemer said, commented that this is being litigated apparently, or the courts are looking at it to see if that is indeed a reasonable or a necessary increase.
You would hope, and I would hate to think that this was a way to squeeze small businesses out of the thing.
I don't even want to speculate. We don't know, but it's still hurting this small business. A couple things that they said they're looking at. They're looking at expanding their hours.
Which is a great thing, because I think 9 a.m. is kind of late, especially if you're a working person, right? Yeah.
I suppose, yeah, it is. Yes, expanding hours is good. It's still expanded hours to more of the same. I think that, changes, maybe they could look at it a little more organic, a little more, the actual business model. But something else they want to do is go online, and that, of course, hopefully will help them compete. You can get, a lot of entities now offer food, meals, whatever, that you can order online, and so the co-op is considering that. So
one of the things that I'm curious how they will do, and I guess we really don't have an answer yet, is how do you bring new shoppers in to co-op, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. If I were on the board, I better be careful what I say, because they'll call me and ask. But I'd go around to other supermarkets and just say, how are they doing it here? How are they doing it A, B, C, D? And what fits our size, our community, our whatever? Is there something fundamentally fresh that they could think of? One thing along these lines that they did mention at the meeting, and that's what they're calling Co-op 2.0. Former board member Dory Bates is heading this committee. And Co-op 2.0 is their program kind of looking at the future, doing some hopefully sort of maybe what I mentioned, forward thinking, forward leaning, what's different? What could we do differently to do what you just said, attract new customers?
And they're also recruiting a new general manager.
Right. Bob Davis, 35 years of service, for which the community thanks him. And this may be an opportunity with a new manager, this Dory Bates Committee 2.0, Co-op 2.0, might be, kind of a turning point.
Let's keep our fingers crossed, because we really need, I would hate to see that become an empty space.
It'd be, the community needs it, depends on it, Roosevelt Center. It anchors all the otey businesses there. So, yeah, that's true.
Great. November 5th, election results were made official with the swearing in of Colin Bird, youngest mayor of Greenbelt ever.
And his family attended. They were there for the swearing in. His grandmother held the Bible that he used for the swearing in, and his parents and other relatives were there. So Yeah, it's great. One thing that was mentioned at the meeting, or that the city charter mentions, is that the mayor position is largely ceremonial. The mayor leads council meetings, the mayor makes proclamations, and represents the city at events. For military purposes, like if there were, National Guard needed to, there was some catastrophe of some sort, storms, or the mayor is the point of contact. And so there is one place where it's not purely a ceremonial position, but could have a key kind of leadership, organizational role.
And that really struck me when I saw in there something about military law. I thought, where did that come from? But now you explained it, and I thank you very much. Yep. Next, we have county public school enrollment is up by 4,000 students, and proposed changes to school boundaries, which we just talked about last week, could make Greenbelt Station parents happy.
Well, possibly. Now, we won't know. So the boundary meeting actually happened we'll report on that next week. So stay tuned about what the school board discusses about boundaries in particular.
And these are just proposals, correct?
Yeah, right. And the main brunt of the article was the whole point that whatever the boundaries are, schools are overcrowded. Principal McNeil at Roosevelt said in his 20 years there, it's always been above capacity. The student enrollment. So the official capacity apparently is 2,100, and yet the actual students enrolled is 2,600, which is incredible. I mean, it makes me not laugh, haha, but it's, wow, how do you do that? And you've seen in our paper all the temporaries. So temporary classrooms got painted. They're very bright and colorful, but that they need so many is part of this. What the principal said was that the policy, PG County policy, is to provide funding based on actual enrollment, not just capacity. So that's good. But something that we also report on that's both good and bad, and that is teachers apply for grants, which, good for them. That's great. But it's a shame that we don't have the funding for basic school requirements. Whether it's little whiteboards that you hold, or a few weeks ago we reported on equipment for science classroom and so forth.
But that, I guess, is an issue taken up at the county level, and efforts to maybe increase taxes don't really fly in the county that well, right?
I guess not. And already, and I've heard people say that PG County has a high tax rate already. And also, the article points out, in fact, our new mayor is quoted as saying this is really not a city issue. Unfortunately, we can weigh in, we can observe, we can make our opinion known, but it is really a county issue. So that's why you have to, when the election for school board and for other county officials, there are issues that hit close to home, hit at home here in Greenbelt.
Exactly. Lastly, we have, you guys received a letter to the editor from Frank Gervasi, and he touched on how the opioid crisis has touched us here in Greenbelt.
Yeah, and sometimes I think our letters to the editor are in a way more newsy, or more news in a way than our articles, although letters to the editor are opinion, and our news hopefully is not, but is actual news. But yes, he brings up the point that he had just attended a funeral for someone who died, and that there's a member of that family who had died a few weeks before, again from overdose, and mentioned a prominent, a well-known member of our community several months ago, died of the same thing, and that it's important for a community to come together to help deal with this issue. Which, by the way, we hear it on TV, it's not just out there, it's here in Greenbelt too. Of course, Mr. Gervasi, with his role with Utopia Film Festival, helpfully points out, and there's a lot of things here that are interesting, that there are two of the movies being shown this weekend at the Utopia Film Festival.
Right, and those are Medicine in the Mind, which looks at the role that meditation can play in the recovery process. A young woman from West Virginia went to the Himalayas and dealt with Tibetan refugees who were able to cope. And apparently this works really, really well. The success rate with helping addicts using meditation. And this is out in Frostburg, Maryland. The other film, takes place, it's called Talbot Goes Purple, and it's in Easton, just across the bay. And their law enforcement and the recovery community got together and helped turn around the opinion that addiction isn't a crime, but a disease.
And so we here in Greenbelt can go to the Utopia Film Festival and see art. This is art, movies are art, but also that art informs life. You know, it's not art museum, it's a separate thing, it's not, it does have something to say that can affect us, and perhaps as a community we can say, yeah, maybe we need to be doing what they're doing in Easton.
We have a really great group of volunteers that has worked all year long to put this festival together. So I would hope that people come out and support it, and really they'll be, I think, pleasantly surprised by the quality of the films there. And there's one short that I do want to mention. It's called Irony. And the whole point of this, and it's going to run 12:30 Sunday afternoon, is how our smartphones and social media own us. So it's a clever little short film.
Sounds great. Look forward to seeing some of those.
Thanks for telling us about what's happening in Greenbelt this week.
Always glad to do it.